Goedenavond allemaal, hier zijn we weer met de 32e, 33e aflevering. Iedere week opnieuw probeer ik het bij te houden en ik vergeet het telkens opnieuw. Vanavond hebben we twee gasten en ik heb mijn sidekick nog eens meegepakt, Johan. Het zal wel duidelijk zijn waarom. Johan heeft nog een leuke ontdekking gedaan. Het toeval wil dat ik hem daarover aansprak heel in het begin toen hij bij zijn nieuwe werkgever werkte. En toen hij zei, ben ik al mee bezig, jongen. Dus ik was zeer blij toen. Dus ik ben ook zeer blij dat ik hem nu mee in de studio mag uitnodigen. En we gaan beginnen met... We gaan ze gewoon alle vier tegelijkertijd in de studio gooien. Dus welkom Johan, welkom Dave en welkom Graham. Good evening all. Oh, sorry. I unmuted you, so my bad. So you can talk now.
Okay, good evening.
Oh yeah.
I'm fine. Hope you're fine as well, guys.
Yes, it's raining in Dingle though.
Oh, so Graham, you're at the Dingle Distillery at this point. In the near.
The house next door at the moment.
Oh, the house next. So that's near. Dave, you're living in Dublin at this point?
Yeah, I'm up in Dublin and it's nice and sunny, not raining. Sorry, Graham.
Okay. And you're not in Dublin or Ireland. You're not even in the near. So Johan is looking at me like, what the hell is he saying?
Yeah, sorry, well, there's something on the background. No, I'm not in the area of distillery. And it's not raining for the moment.
So, hey guys, very welcome in our show, in our broadcast. I was just saying in the introduction, I'm really looking forward to this one because, like I said before we started, I'm a big Irish whiskey fan. I didn't, for quite some time, I wasn't able to buy Dingle whiskey on the mainland because it was only available in Ireland. So I think it's a good point. Good moment to start producing for the mainland as well. How many countries do you deliver at this point? Any idea? It's my first question. Yes. Silent.
We pretty much nearly everywhere in the world, really. Okay. We went into America and North America about 2 years ago with the gin and the vodka. And then last year was the first time we went in with the whiskey. But across Europe, we've been in different countries. We've even gone as far as Australia and New Zealand as well. But it's just at the start, it was more with the gin and the vodka because we were able to make more. The whiskey was more of a limited release, so we wouldn't have been able to go as far with it. We wouldn't have had as much stock to go, you know?
Yeah. But eventually, we are one of the last countries where Dingle is available. Shame on us.
People just need to keep asking for it, and we'll get it to them.
Yeah. So I'm glad you finally introduced Johan introduced Dingle in the Belgian market. So thank you, Johan. You did your job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So it's a fairly new distillery because you started in 2012. Are you able, one of you, to say how did he come up with the plan? Because I know the founders are actually brewers, so it's a bit different than distilling whiskey. But and with brewers, I mean, Dave, I think you're the person to you have to know this part because it's actually based on porterhouse. Yeah. Sorry, but what is porterhouse and why did he come up with Dingle? Of how did he come up with it?
So it pretty much, Dingle and porterhouse kind of go hand in hand. Porterhouse, it was founded by Liam Lahart and Oliver Hughes. They're two cousins, and they founded the Porterhouse Brewery back in the early 90s. It would have been the first microbrewery in Dublin City in 1996. Before that, they actually set up a brewery in Wicklow called Harty's, but it didn't last because some of the bigger guys started, closing them down by cutting off their points of supply. So the lads went back and said, right, let's get a pub first and then supply it with beer. So they were doing it the other way around. And so Porterhouse was made in 1996. Then they asked Liam, a friend of theirs that used to work in a brewery in England, to come over and give them a hand. Peter, a hand to come over and brew for them. And he was only meant to come over for 6 months, but Peter has been here for 30, 40 years now. So yeah, the brewery went from strength to strength. It started in Temple Bar in the brew pub. It was the first brew pub there. And then it moved out towards Blanchestown. And then 2 years ago, we moved into a new state-of-the-art brewery in beside Glasnevin Cemetery. But back in the early 2000s, the lads were talking, and Oliver came up with the idea of building a distillery. Mm-hmm. And Liam was like, brilliant, we can put it beside the brewery because we're getting deliveries of malt and everything's there, we can put it all. And then Oliver was like, no, let's put it down in Dingle. And that's where it all kind of was like, why are we going to put it all down in Dingle? But Dingle was Oliver, the very far end of the country, like 4.5 hours away from Dublin. And it was Oliver's kind of second home. It was where he went with his family, because he was a solicitor, but he was also working with the brewery and the pubs. So he's a very busy man. So in 2012, the winter of 2012, that was when we first distilled our first new make spirit. And it just carried on from there. So we make gin, vodka, and whiskey in Dingle. And then up here in Dublin, we make all our porterhouse beers. So they're the same family, but just separate companies.
So the brewery is based in Dublin and the distillery is based in Dingle. Just so people know. Yeah. Graham, you joined Dingle not so long ago. You mentioned October 2019. Great timing, I would say.
That's been pretty quiet since then.
Yeah. So you invented a little coronavirus just to cool down a bit.
I took it with me.
How were your first months?
They were good. Yeah. I mean, Dingle. I don't suppose too many people have visited Dingle, but Dingle is a very small town with only 2,000 of a population. But in the summer, it becomes a tourist mecca, and there's tens, hundreds of thousands of people visit the Dingle Peninsula itself. Beautiful part of the world, as you can see. So in the summer, it's a completely different place. So we arrived in mid-October, just as things quietened down for the winter. So it was a nice time just to get acclimatized to the town and surroundings and see it, a little bit quieter. Mm-hmm. But obviously coming through the winter and then coming out this year into spring, it was we expected to enjoy Dingle as normal, but unfortunately it's been different.
Yeah. But you still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's still a great place to be.
Okay, were you able to visit some places in near so you get acquainted with the town and the environment?
Yeah, we've done a lot of touring around, a bit of cycling as well. The weather in Dingle is quite changeable, so you can get 4 seasons in one day or 4 seasons in 1 hour probably in Dingle.
Is that not the same for Ireland and Scotland as well? Always.
Always, yeah. But I think Dingle is just that little bit ahead of everything.
Okay.
Obviously, there's not much. There's nothing to stop the weather coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. So it just blows in and through. So it's. I mean, if it's raining, it'll stop raining, and if it's not raining, it will start raining. So it's quite predictable.
So, Graham, people can notice when they hear you talk, you're Scottish, obviously. Dave, don't mention it, but he can't help it.
I've got some Irish blood if I go back far enough.
Okay.
There will be.
Okay. Dave is laughing again. That's okay for him. but you're Scottish, and some people will know you from another distillery because you previously worked for another great distillery. You worked there for quite some time. How many years did you work at Glenmorangie?
I was at Glenmorangie for 14 years, from 2005 to 2019.
So that's a long time. And then you decide I'm going to Ireland, where your wife and and kids. I think you have kids. Were they happy with it?
They're older. They're all away from the house, so
Okay.
they're doing their own thing in Scotland and England. They're spread out, so they weren't wasn't too much of a bother for them. But yeah, big, geographically it's a big move. It's a long distance, but in this world now, especially with communication like it is, you can keep in touch quite easily.
Yeah. But obviously, the COVID virus doesn't make it easier at this point because you weren't able to see them for quite some time.
No, we had plans to see them, 2 or 3 times this year already with things booked up. We were going to go back. They were going to come here for the first time, but at the moment, no, there's no sign of any let up. We're still waiting for the green light to go back and be able to visit. But we're lucky. We're all healthy, so
yeah. That's the main thing. Graham, what are you working on at this point? At this moment in the distillery, what are you producing?
We're producing single malt just now. So we produce 2 styles of Irish spirit. We produce the single malt and also pot still. So we ran the pot still run earlier in the year. We did 3 months of pot still, February, March, April time.
And that's batch 3, if I'm right. That's the third batch. But will it be the fourth? No, it's the third one.
The pot still we've released last year. We released the third release.
Okay.
I'm working on a 4th release pot still, which should be out hopefully by the end of this year or before the end of this year.
You're making me curious already. Jonas watching us like the same. Yes.
Of course.
And it will be the biggest pot still release so far. The pot still has been much smaller release compared to the single malt, probably about 10% of the single malt volume compared is the pot still. So this year we're going up to across the whole world, it'll be 8,500 bottles. So that's more than doubled the previous release. So hopefully it'll reach more parts of the world now.
I hope so too. But Graham, you're being Scottish and a Scottish distiller. So now you started working in an Irish distillery, and you're making pot still. I don't think you made pot still before.
Never made pot still. Never heard of it really, because in Scotland, if you speak about pot still, it's quite a generic term just for whiskey made in copper pot stills. It's not a classification in any way. It's just a description of the copper pot itself. So to hear about pot still and find out, work out what it was, and actually be able to produce it for the first time was really interesting, just to see the differences.
Is the difference big enough for you, or you're like, well, it's mainly the same thing?
Because the raw materials are different, the ingredients are different. It does start its life quite different in terms of character and flavour, even in the washback. And then obviously with distillation, you pick out different characters as well. And this year we've always traditionally just done malted barley and unmalted barley as the mix, but this year we threw in some rye and some oats as well into the mix. So it'll be interesting to see how they affect the spirit as it matures.
Yeah. Okay. Dave, being Irish, pot still, are you a big fan, or is it just like, well, it's okay?
Pot still is kind of single pot still is kind of quintessential Irish for me. Like I used to run bars and restaurants for like 20 years in Dublin, and if I had somebody that was on holidays in Ireland from another country and they said they wanted to try an Irish whiskey, I would direct them towards a single pot still first, in a way, just so that they could see this is a unique style it can only be made in Ireland and called single pot still. It can be made in other countries, but just that character and the history of it, just it's a very Irish thing of, the way it came about dodging tax and stuff like that. It's just very Irish ingenuity and not wanting to pay the tax man is kind of, it just strikes a real chord with Irish people.
When I'm When in 2012 the Dingle Distillery was built, it was the fourth one in Ireland. At this point, there are way more distillers, and there are a lot of people making or starting to make pot still. Is it a good time to being Irish distillers?
I would say it's an exciting time to be, and there's more than 30 distilleries now. And when you think, in less than what's that, 7 or 8 years, there's been a huge growth. Mm-hmm. I think in Scotland, you've probably in the same time span had probably 30 new distilleries, but they were obviously growing from a much larger base. So it's definitely flourishing here. Hopefully, everyone can survive and make their own niche, because the great thing about Scotch whisky industry is that there is that variety, and Ireland's unfortunately been lacking that variety for years. So now we've got the chance to put that choice and variety back in. So hopefully, the whisky industry is always. I don't think it matters which country you're in. It's an industry that pulls together and helps each other along, because they understand that it's important that we all make the contribution. So I think definitely interesting, exciting times ahead.
A bit of making history, because Irish whiskey was away, but at this point it's booming.
Yeah, and we still have to increase our market. We're booming in terms of production and number of distilleries available and producing, but you got to think that the majority are not actually selling on the open market really, or their own spirits. So that we have to either grab that market share from somewhere or encourage more people to drink whiskey, which the latter would be more preferable.
I'm curious about the next question. So I will start with Graham, being Scottish. Whiskey with an E or without the E?
Well, my predictive text on my phone has changed now to whiskey with an E, so I take that as being I've accepted it.
Okay.
The first few emails and first few texts, or even worse, if you put it on Twitter without the E, you were roasted alive. But the predictive text is a great thing.
So, Dave, same question. With an E or without an E?
I think one of the first messages or emails me and Graham had together, Graham was like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to making whiskey," and I messaged him, and he spelled it without the E, and I says, "You can cut that out now and put in the E. You're not in Scotland anymore." Yeah, but I know, I suppose with the E, but there's history in Ireland of both, so same in Scotland, but it's just kind of more of a tradition in Ireland with the E.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with what is in the whiskey, but it's only just to make sure everybody knows it's Irish.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Johan, same question. Or without an E?
Today it's with an E, of course. Tomorrow it can be different. I have. For me, it's different if I talk to Scottish distillery or an Irish distillery. So for me, both.
Okay, depends on who is in front of you.
Yes, sure.
It's pretty clear now.
I always do it with respect. So it's when it's an Irish distillery, it's with an E.
Most Irish whiskey is distilled 3 times. Is it the same for Dingle?
Yes, and most of the time, yes.
Most of the time. So there's one or more who isn't distilled 3 times, or will there be coming one as not distilled 3 times?
There may be. It's always interesting to try different things, and it'd be lovely to compare double distilled Dingle with triple distilled Dingle, and then I think whiskey consumers are really, they're looking for choice and looking to try different things and compare and contrast. And if you can give people a choice and keep the interest levels up, that's something Dingle we definitely have to do to keep keep our customers.
Will there be a peated version in the future?
There could be, it could be there already.
Oh, okay.
I smell smoke in the air.
Now you're making us curious. So tell us more. Tell us more. Can you tell us more?
Sorry.
Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah. We've run some peated single malt this year, and that was one of the things about Dingle. I've been, given a free hand to do and try different things. There's no rules in Dingle as to where we're going direction wise. It's all about just trying to make the best spirit possible and maturing the best casks available. So we tried some peated this year. Which,
so there's nobody who's saying, Graham, you can't do that. You can try everything, or is there somebody who's saying, Graham, this you can't do?
I haven't heard it yet, but
you just started. Okay. Dave, did you try the peated version?
Yeah, we had it at that. We had the Aviators Whiskey Society down. Very interesting, and it's double distilled as well. So it's very
So actually, answer 2 times at the same question. Yes, it's 2 times distilled. Yes, it's peated.
So I thought
very, very, very interesting. Kind of nice little hints of peat, and it was only 6 weeks old in a virgin cask, quarter cask that you had it, and it's really nice.
Yeah, talking about virgin cask and bourbon cask, I did some reading. Mostly, you always start with the first fill cask, bourbon cask. Is it still going on, or is that written off?
Yeah, we fill. We've got a fairly set cask policy just now, where we're filling 40% into ex-bourbon, 40% into sherry, 10% into port, and then the other 10%, is made up of wine and other casks that that I can source. So that's fairly rigid, and that gives us consistency for the future in terms of maturing stock. In terms of virgin oak, we have used some of that in the past, and I will use some of it in the future. But you have to be very careful with virgin oak; it can overpower very quickly. And sometimes, it works well maybe adding some of that to bourbon cask matured whiskey, but it's a tricky one to get right on its own.
Yeah, another thing I was reading about, and that's something I really liked about Dingle. There's never ever have been a Dingle bottling, but wasn't made at the distillery itself. So there was never bought any whiskey with another distillery and sold as being Dingle. It was a great thing. Why? Do you have any idea why they didn't do it? Because it would be easy money. Easy money because they could earn some money with a nice whiskey. Okay, they didn't make it themselves, but they could have said it's Dingle. All the other, not all the others, but a lot of other distilleries do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm quite new to it. I know where we are now, and it's something we would never even think of. Whether the thought went through their heads at all, I'm sure. It wasn't easy getting Dingle through the first few years. Very, very difficult. But what was fortunate was that the gin was very successful. So, that definitely has helped fund the distillery until now. So, we were fortunate that way. And it is nice to be able to sit back now and say that we haven't. All our spirit is our own. It's all matured at the distillery and all bottled at the distillery. It's a great, it's a great
cool thing to say if you can say everything is ours and then we never bought something. Talking about the Dingle gin, this the one. There were a lot of prizes won with this one.
Yeah,
I think you know a lot of them because you did some research as well for the Dingle Distillery.
Yes, I saw that they won Swirl's Best Gin, the whiskey award, last year. So and then many people knew it or saw it already.
My sidekick is back again. Hi,
When I
Chilton.
discovered the whiskeys, I didn't know yet that they also made vodka and gin, which is very nice to have because in our country, when I enter a shop or when I visit a new client, they all say, "Oh, we have enough gin last year's. It's explode. We have a stop for the moment." But yeah, when you have something with a story, they won the medal, so that helps, of course. But you have the whiskey, you have the story, and it's an extra.
Yeah,
and it's a really good one when you put it in between the others. The pot still story. If you taste it pure, then you taste also a really big difference in between many others. Yeah, there are enough gins on the market, so you don't have to convince people. You just have to let them taste.
Let them taste it. Yeah. Dave, originally it was made for porterhouse, for the bars.
Yeah, it's funny. We were the first artisan producer of gin in Ireland, and when we started making gin, there was nobody making gin. And then about 9 months later, the gin market just exploded, and you were getting a gin pretty much at the start. You were getting a gin every month, and then it got to the point where you were getting a new gin every week. But because we were first out the gate with the gin and our vodkas, or gin and our vodka, it really helped. And then winning the award last year as world's best gin, that really kind of kicked things on, especially here in the domestic market as well, because a lot of gins from other places would be cheaper because we're more of an artisanal producer. Our gin would be a little bit more priced than your mass-produced ones, but it kind of made people stop and go, "Oh, actually, Ireland is making a world-class gin here. You know, this is in our backyard. Let's support it," which was very helpful. And it's just, it's very good on its own. It's very good in gin and tonics, very good in martinis. But it does, as Graham was saying, it did help at the start to keep the cash flow going so that we could keep making whiskey in the distillery. Yeah. So the gin and the vodka help a lot. And they'd be the kind of ones that we would be able to push to certain markets first before we bring. Because we had to wait until the whiskey aged before we could bring the whiskey out into different markets. Yeah.
Both of them, the gin and the vodka. The gin and the vodka are still made. Graham, do you have anything about it? Will the recipe stay the same, or will there be a change in the future, or will there be another gin or vodka?
There's no immediate plans to change. Definitely the gin recipe and the vodka recipe as well has proved to be very, very popular. So I don't think we'd ever stray too far from that. In the past we've done what we call a seasonal gin, 4 seasons pack, which has different character depending on the season that it's named after. I think there'll be things to do in the future with the gin and vodka, but nothing immediately.
Okay, so you can play around in the near future.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Talking about beers, Dave.
Yeah.
You're the brand ambassador not only for Dingle Distillery in Ireland, but as well also for Porterhouse.
Yeah.
For people who don't know Porterhouse is mainly known for their bars.
Yep.
When you visit,
that'd be the first thing people would think of. Yeah.
Yeah, when you visit Dublin, for example, you have to visit Porterhouse.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have to visit any bar in Dublin.
Yeah, it's always on people's to-do list. Yeah, definitely.
So I visit the both of them, and I'm talking about the one on Temple Bar. Actually, it's not Temple Bar. It's is it called Temple Bar?
The one in Temple, there's one in Temple Bar, and then there's one called Central, which is on Nassau Street. Yeah. That has the Dingle Whiskey Bar.
Yeah, but in this case, the Temple Bar. Bar.
Yeah.
So there are. It's for us Belgium. It's not. It's a strange thing, and it's not only Porterhouse. It's all the other bars as well. 3 stores of bar.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Belgium or Holland or something, or even Germany?
I've been France and Germany and Poland, but I've never been to Belgium.
Visit some standard European countries. The bars are not the same like in Ireland.
Yeah, I know. we like to be very close to taps and fridges. We don't like to have to walk.
You don't like to walk. Even in Scotland, there are bars with only one store, two stores. But
yeah, I know it's like one story, and people will be like, "Oh no, let's put a bar there." Yeah, it's just the way. It's kind of, I suppose, in Ireland, the bar culture as well is always. For me, from running bars, it's like half of going into a bar is talking to the barman and being at the counter and having the crack with everybody there. So it's actually like, it's the atmosphere it creates. So you'll always find with Irish people, even when they go away on holidays and stuff like that, they'll always go to a bar counter, even if the bar is sitting people, they'll always kind of go straight to the bar because they want to sit down, they want to chat, they want to have a bit of crack, and it's just the way that we are. We're very, we like to talk a lot in Ireland. And we like to just talk about the weather because it's always changing. And then, it just creates that small, and generally bars are in small rooms. They used to be in small rooms but the bigger ones in Dublin. But yeah, they always put bars on every floor. It's just a thing. Like I ran a bar that had, it was a restaurant on one floor and a bar upstairs, and they both had bars.
Okay.
Bar counter. Yeah.
Graham, you just moved to Ireland, being Scottish. Is it true what Dave says? Are they very, very chatty?
Definitely, arriving in Dingle, if you walk into a pub in Dingle, people will have a conversation with you. They won't turn your back on you. They'll speak at the bar and they'll ask, they'll find out where you're from and who you are.
Chilton is already moving to Ireland as well. So,
well, actually, one of my friends from Canada that was over, they couldn't get over the fact that every time you went out in a bar in Ireland, you got a new friend. So, like every night you went out, and they'd be like, "Oh," and you'd be introducing them to somebody, and they'd be like, "Oh, how long have you friends?" And you'd be like, "Oh, I met him in the pub about a year ago, and we've been friends ever since." And they're like, "What? You don't work together, you don't have friends in common?" And you're like, "No, I just started talking to him in a pub and we've been friends ever since." And it's that kind of thing that people love. It's very much an Irish thing. Yeah.
It's an Irish spirit, yeah. I can imagine that. Okay, so I had to ask, sorry. It had nothing to do with whiskey, even beer, but back to business whiskey. The distillery. I got a few photos of the distillery. Can you talk us through it? Because this one is in the distillery, obviously.
Yep. On the one on the left, you're looking in between the washbacks towards the stills.
Okay, and how many stills are there?
Three stills, one for each distillation.
Okay, and then I've got this one, obviously.
Okay, so that's the left, it's our main warehouse now, which is just a mile away from the distillery, just up the road a bit. It's a great building for maturing. Lovely. And there you go, there's some sherry casks, sherry butts in front of you there. You get an example of what we're filling.
And then the last one is this one?
Yeah, that's a mark to our founding fathers. So at the beginning, when the distillery was getting off the ground, there was a funding program. So people invested in the distillery by buying a cask even before the distillery has started production. So they put money in and faith into the distillery. And now there are 500 founding fathers who own a cask of Dingle.
And they can buy, or they can use it or sell it back to the distillery whenever they want, or are there just some marketing points when they can do that?
Yeah, no. Once it reaches 5 years, they have an option to mature for longer. They can bottle it then, or they can sell it back to the distillery.
Okay. If they choose to bottle it at some point, does it have to be Dingle, or they can put on their own label on it?
No, but they can have the label can be personalized for them. It's a founding fathers label, but they'll get their own name on it, their cask number, their founding fathers number as well. But no, we do bottle it for them as well, so it's a full service.
Okay, Dave, do you have one or two or three?
No, unfortunately not. No, I didn't get one when it happened.
You didn't get one, or you couldn't afford one, just like
I couldn't afford one.
I think that's the main problem for the most of us. It's okay, cool, yeah. I'm gonna think about it.
Yeah.
So there are at this point 5 single malt expressions. Batch 5 came out last year, and there are 3 pot stills expressions. But all of them are a bit different than the other ones. So I was looking it up. Apparently, the 4th one, batch 4 single malt, you're talking about bourbon, cherry, and port cars. And batch 5, I'm trying batch 5 at this point, actually. It's bourbon, pigs, and Madeira.
That's right.
And you were trying it as well, I think?
Yes.
I have it as well.
Okay. Dave, where's yours?
I used mine up in a tasting last week. I have to get some more.
Okay, Dave's out. Bye. So, Graham, can you tell us something more about batch 5? What does taste like? What do we need to know? Or
well, I'll tell you what it's made of. It was released earlier this year, and there was just over 35,000 bottles in the batch, so largest batch to date. And the whiskey in the glass is around about 6 years old, and it's a combination of 3 cask types. And those cask types are ex-bourbon, PX, which is Pedro Jimenez Sherry, and Madeira. And the percentage composition is 45% bourbon, 45% Pedro Jimenez, and 10% of the Madeira.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Same Madeira has been used in any of the Dingle batches. You know, it's quite a rare cask to get hold of. Definitely difficult to obtain. So it was nice to be able to use that for the first time in the batch.
You said batch 5 is about 35,000 bottles.
Yes.
So it's about, if I'm right, 10 casks?
No, you're about 35,000. You're about 150 casks.
Oh, sorry. No. Yeah. That's okay. It's late. It's already 9 o'clock here.
Don't worry.
And I smelled on the whiskey, so I'm quite no. Okay. It's a fairly big number. The next expression, well, is it always more or less the same amount of casks that you use for a batch?
No, the batches have grown. The first batch 1 release was only a few thousand bottles, so you're probably adding roughly about 10,000 bottles each time to each batch, because back in 2012-13, the production levels weren't as big as they are now. You know, we are producing a more whiskey or spirit now than we did a few years ago. So over the next few years, you will see more or larger batches released of the Dingle single malt and pot still. Okay.
If I would ask you at this point, where would you say Dingle is, generally speaking, in the Irish whiskey industry? Because you have, for example, Teeling, it's a fairly big player. Then you have some other distilleries, Middleton, for example, it's the biggest one. Bushmills. At that point, if you compare it with the big guys, where's Dingle?
I think, well, for me, we're at a different stage from the big guys who've been there for a long time. You know, they've got a portfolio of whiskey maturing that they can release different ages and lots of expressions. So Dingle is we're not there yet, but we're starting to get to that point of maturity where we begin to get noticed really for the quality of the spirit and the whiskey and how it's maturing, and we're really beginning to see the character of Dingle come through now. In the next 2-3 years, you see some really good, interesting whiskies coming out of the Dingle warehouses.
And will there be a standard expression? For example, a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or something?
I would say, yeah, we're definitely heading that way. As the volume increases, so maybe a couple of years away from that yet, but definitely heading towards core expressions with more limited edition releases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, how well known is Dingle in Ireland?
It would be very well known. It's kind of like what you were saying there about the different distilleries. Like, I think the main reason a lot of people are drawn to Dingle is because it's family owned, it's independent. We make all our own whiskey and age all our own whiskey and bottle all our own whiskey. We don't buy in anything. Whereas some of the other producers might, and some of the bigger guys, as Graham was saying, would have vast warehouses where they'd export different age expressions everywhere. But for Ireland, I think it's more a connection for people because it's independent, and we're very transparent about what we do, as in, like, everything is there in Dingle. Like, people ask, oh, where do you bottle, and did you buy in any whiskey? And it's like, no, everything from Dingle is from Dingle. That's it. And still a lot of people would only know some of the bigger companies like your Idea, like Middleton and Bushmills and brands like that, just because they would have so much more people on the ground and so much more advertisements and stuff like that, But I think once people see Dingle, then they kind of fall in love with it, because it's a kind of a unique product. Mm-hmm. It falls into that bracket of being a special bottle of, like, for somebody's birthday or a celebration of a new job or something like that. It's a bottle that you get when it's something special, that kind of way. So it kind of holds a good spot in Irish people's eyes. Yeah,
people know it, recognize the quality from the bottling if they see it. And if they taste it, of course. I have a strange question, maybe, but this is your logo. I don't even want to say what I think it is, but what is it?
It's the Wren Man.
It's a what?
Wren Man. It's on our bottles as well.
Yeah, I know, but what? It's a Rain Man.
No, Wren, as in, the bird. The little small bird, the tiny bird. Yeah, so it's actually an old pagan festival that has little pockets in Ireland. It's still very, very popular. And in Dingle, it's massive. So on the 26th, like Stephen's, the day after Christmas, there's a big festival in Dingle where each part of the village has different clans and they dress up like in straw and different outfits. It's called Wren Day. Yeah, it's celebrated in different parts, but Dingle, it's absolutely huge. So that's why it's on the bottles and it's on the top of the bottle.
When do they celebrate it?
Just after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year.
Graham, you've seen this.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things about you're meant to go around and knock on someone's door and go in and play music, and they give you money or give you food, and the whole idea is they're playing the music and all this kind of stuff to scare away the bad spirits from last year and welcome in the new year.
The original Halloween.
Kind of, yeah. It's just kind of it falls into that. But in Dingle, it is huge. There's a massive festival. Like if you just Google it for Dingle and Wren Day, it's crazy. And they all have, each road has different clans on it, and it's crazy. It's really a crazy festival.
Okay. Graham, do they celebrate it in Scotland as well?
No. Definitely not. No. It's quite unique to Dingle. Well, quite unique to Ireland. Definitely unique to Dingle.
That makes it clear. No. You stay for Scotland crazy, but no, the Irish.
We don't dress up in Scotland.
You wear kilts, don't worry. You just still wear kilts, it's the same thing. We just wear straw kilts.
I would ask, is there a big difference between Scotland and Ireland? But I know now already the answer.
It's pretty sure. Graham is still getting used to it, so yes. At this point, what's your favorite whiskey Dingle had made and you were able to try up till now? And we'll start, Graham. You're the newest member, so.
I swear a little bit biased, but I think the Dingle Batch 5 single malt is for me the best so far. It's really showing Dingle coming of age, real high quality casks in there with high percentage of Pedro Jimenez, and when you add that to the Madeira, you're adding in a uniqueness. So yeah, for me, Batch 5's it really is. It stands out at
this point. Okay, Dave, what's your favorite?
I would have to say the same, but I do love my single pot still. So I am very excited to see what Graham is concocting for later this year. I have saw a few samples and stuff, and it looks really good. But for me, the single malt, I think the progression of our whiskey has been very evident, and it's been great for customers to be able to come on that journey with us from batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, batch 4, and see the progression in the whiskey. So batch 5 for me will be our best one that we have out there. Like, taste wise, it's really starting to come into its own as a whiskey. And I even noticed that myself doing tastings here in Ireland, because a lot of the people would have been with me in tastings last year and the year before for the other batches. And this year's reaction was kind of like, whoa, this is getting really, really good. Like, it's really starting to come of age. So yeah, I would be on batch 5 as well. But also look forward to the single pot still.
Yeah, I was trying to trick you, but but I think you thought I would do that. So you're wrong. There aren't any shows at this point. Is it difficult for you to represent Dingle at this point? Because normally you would have Belfast Whiskey Week, I think.
But that happened. They went virtual with it this year.
Yeah, but was it the same?
Yeah, it worked really well. Actually, it actually gave us more viewers and customers from all across the world than it normally would. Because last year I did it to a room of about 30 people, and like, just from the comments alone, you were getting people from Japan, you were getting people from Canada, you were getting people from America, which was amazing. Because like all the other festivals are cancelled, like Whiskey Live isn't going ahead, Whiskey Social Belfast isn't going ahead. So we just have to run with what's going and try and do what we can. There is, like, I've done some small tastings and I am organising some other small, but they're very small. It's very tricky, because meeting the customer, talking to the customer face to face, letting them try the whiskey. That's the way, like, you can describe it, but you still want them to try it, Yeah.
I think it's the same everywhere. Yeah. Graham, you worked at a Scottish distillery, and you work at this point for an Irish distillery. What is the main thing different? What's the most different thing to do, or is it the people, or is it just the product? Obviously, it's the pot still, because it's another process, but are there big differences, or is it more or less the same?
I think you can say there's lots of similarities. The process is very, very similar, whether it be double distilled or triple distilled. If you take that out of it, then the processes are the same. And some of the issues you face are the same as well. You've got bureaucracy to deal with, and environmental issues, health and safety issues. So yeah, on that side of things, the world is a similar place. So a lot of commonality there. But for me, what makes Dingle unique is just the point in its life that it's at. It's just heading into the most exciting phase probably for a distillery you could ever imagine. To be part of a distillery that's going from 6-7 years old to 20 years old. Mm-hmm. That's like watching your children grow up and develop. So you can't get that chance in Scotland, or not as easily. So to come in, at the time I've come in now, for me, it's just the best thing you could ever wish for.
Very exciting times.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Dave, how long are you working for Dingle at this point?
3 years or so, I think.
Yes.
But I knew the guys from running bars because knew them for 20 years or so because they were the only other bar in the city that had craft beer, like their own independent beer, and the bar I ran was the same. We didn't, we only had independent beer on as well. So we used to send customers back and forth. So I knew the guys for a long, long time on the bar side of things. Yeah.
Do you see a difference between now and then?
A little bit. It's starting to change. I think actually the situation we're in now has made people kind of look at what's around them, because here in Ireland we are kind of overrun with the larger companies, and a lot of venues and bars and stuff are completely, you know, locked in with certain big companies, and there's nothing you can do there. But I think what's happened has made people look at more what's on their doorstep, which is great for a lot of the small Irish distilleries like ourselves and breweries. So it's it's starting to change. People are starting to look at local, you know.
Yeah. Okay, Johan, I know you in basic are a big Scottish whiskey fan.
For me,
but you tried a lot of Japanese and Irish whiskies as well. As an outstander, just like me, how do you see the future for the Irish distilleries? Because, like I said before, in the early days, and it's not so long ago, I think maybe 5-6 years, there were only a few, and now it's up to 30. What's your view on that?
Yeah, 31 to be exact. But I think there is a great future for the Irish ones. And that's why I told my boss we really have to look to Ireland. I was on a trip last year in April, and it was really great to see how many different small distillery were there. Totally new things. And like Dingle, you have the single pot still, you have single malt, you have a really new thing or new in the way, like we saw in the past when there were 3 distilleries. So I convinced my boss to look and, of course, not forget Ireland, because you have some bigger guys. You have Dingle, who are more the batch distillers, and that's why I'm looking for now in Ireland, because before it didn't exist there. So it's really interesting, and it's nice to discover, and to bring it to Belgium and let the people discover what they are doing in Ireland for the moment, because I think it's great stuff. So
So the Irish are into beer, but at this point you're getting more and more acquainted again with whiskey. And
the Scottish also tell it. We learn it from the Irish one. So
you're going to start a row now.
A few years ago, I was at the Whiskey Museum, and there was a Scottish guy and an Irish guy, and you started to argue about who was first. So I thought it was funny, but the other guys didn't thought it was funny. Is there a difference for the Irish people? I mean, about drinking whiskey? Because I always get the impression they don't drink a lot of whiskey themselves. And it's the same thing for the Scottish one. It's like for us Belgians, beer is normal. Let's try something special.
It kind of changes generationally. Like my father and that, they would have drank more whiskey and spirits, and then my generation drank more beer. But now it's kind of people are getting a balance between everything, because cocktails became popular, gin came back into popularity, and whiskey as well. So like people aren't afraid to try them anymore. Whereas before it was very, it was always one thing or the other sold more. But now it's kind of spread across the board between spirits, wines, beers. But whiskey has definitely come back in a massive way in Ireland. Yeah.
Graham, do you get the same feeling for Ireland and Scotland?
I think so. Yeah, I think definitely there's this generation thing where the older Scottish people would have drunk much more whiskey, but now, the tables are turning now. People are much more interested in trying different things. And, definitely a huge interest in whiskey in Ireland now.
Yeah, and then I remember the 90s when you were looking at a movie, especially the American movies, when they drank whiskey. It was always like a shot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And mostly it was Jameson.
Yeah, and they come over to Ireland and they do it. The first thing they'll do when they come into a bar sometimes is shot a whiskey, and they look around and everyone's looking at them going, "What are you doing? We don't do that over here."
So you're not a fan of that?
No. Drink it and chat and enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can you use a Dingle whiskey in a cocktail?
Yeah, I've made an awful lot of different cocktails. I've made an old kind of classic James Joyce with it. I made it for the aviators there. I did a dinner night where we paired food with the gin, the vodka, and the whiskey. I did some old fashions with our batch 4. It was last year. It goes really, really well. Like there's some very kind of there's some of the more high-end cocktail guys playing around with the whiskeys to make really unique bespoke drinks for it, which is really good to see, using Irish products and making something very unique.
Graham, as a distiller, does it get to you when they start to mix the whiskey? I always get the impression for a master distiller, it's like you have to drink it neat.
No. I mean, I drink my whiskey neat. I wouldn't add very much water at all. Or ice particularly, but no, I have no issue with people doing things with whiskey. I think it's interesting to see how it works, and how it complements the flavors in the cocktail. So quite happy.
Okay, Dave, you it's okay. You aren't fired.
He's better than me anyway.
So, guys, if there's one thing you want to change in the Irish whiskey industry, what would it be? And I think I have to ask Dave this one.
Well, I know what it is. Yeah, they need to change the pot still recipe for Ireland, the technical file, to loosen it up a little bit.
Okay.
It used to be more. If ever you've read Fionn O'Connor's book, A Glass Apart, it's more about, and I'm from a farm side of things as well, it was more about your local distillery used what was in the local area, and that was the pot still area, or the pot still recipe. So it was kind of like, pot still was like different accents around the country in regards to their ingredients. And that's what I feel. I know they put in the technical file to protect it, which was a smart move, but I do think they need to revisit it and open it up to add in so that we can play around with it more and add in different things like Graham has.
Maybe it's a trick question, but Graham, I'm asking you, isn't it a blend if you do that?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, single pot still.
Yeah.
Dave, you're safe. No, but yeah, technically, I presume if you're saying something like that, you want to add more rye whiskey or corn or whatever, or
yeah, so, there's loads of different things you can add. Rye, wheat.
Isn't it difficult to say this is a blend and this is a pot still? What makes it the main difference?
It's because it's a pot still recipe.
I do tend to explain pot still as being, it starts as life a bit like a blend. It's a blend in one cask almost. But you're starting with the mix of ingredients at the beginning and not at the end.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, really.
Yeah, because there is some really old recipes that are really interesting, that have been in like old distilleries recipe books from 100 years ago or more, and it'd be really interesting just to make them now with the way that technology has moved. Even though we do everything by hand in Dingle, it'd be just really interesting to see what it'd be like to produce it now in the way we produce whiskey now, just to see the difference, because there is some of them old bottles still available, like around, that are at tastings, and it'd be nice just to put the recipe from the 1930s beside the recipe from 2030, And
so you just have to convince Graham to do it, and okay, it isn't called whiskey at that point, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
we still have it.
I would try it. I'm curious about it. And I think Johan wants to try it as well. He's sitting there like, yep,
Of course.
no. Yeah, okay. Cool. Is there anything you want to say what I forgot to mention and you really want to know the viewers? This is about Irish whiskey or pot still whiskey or about Graham or about Dave yourself? Not really. We mentioned everything.
I don't think there's anything else that you want to mention. Just yeah, just
So I did a great, actually you want to say I did a great job.
yeah, you did a great job.
Done you.
Yes. So no, we are at the end of our show. So I really want to thank you both for joining us. Johan, thank you again for joining us as well. He's the
Thank
best
you all.
side had all season. Is Shilton still here? I don't think so. So I can
Mick
say
Matthews, one of the Irish guys, is there. Michael Matthews. He was down with us in the distillery a few weeks ago. He is he's actually a founding father as well. He loves his whiskey. Great
okay.
man.
But
Yeah,
I think
really.
he drank a bit too much because he was saying Mary, and I think he means Johan. So Johan. From now on, we
I
call you
cannot
Mary.
compare.
Okay. Chilton is still here. He says, all the best, Team Dingle. Looking forward to more.
Cheers.
So,
Thank you.
so you can do a co-op with Paul John maybe later on. So I have some news for the viewers. Next week, it's Martin from Highland Park who's joining us. The week after that, Mike Fish, and then Alex from Calvados, something quite different. Then Michiel and Mireille from The Green Man, Alistair Walker from Infrequent Flyers. And then we go into the rum. Alexander Kong is joining us as well. And later on, we will have some other guests as well. So you see, you're not the only one. And it will be quite some time till the next Irish one comes up. So it's all up to you now. You and I will go to the back, and I will leave you to the views, and you can say whatever you want. You have the last word, and then afterwards we meet up when we go offline, if it's okay for you. If not, you can run away. So stop streaming. Thank you for the viewers for joining us, and I will see you soon. And I hope you enjoyed it once again. And talk to you soon. And I will leave you as.
Bye.
Hey, Graham.
We're left in the room.
Yeah, we're left in the room. Thanks to everyone for watching, and buy Dingle and taste Dingle anyway. That's the main thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for everyone. And, you know, once the world becomes a normal place, please do come to Dingle, visit the distillery. We run tours. It's the best place to drink Dingle in Dingle. So, yeah, thank you. Cheers.